There's some other stuff going on in the world as well that we must talk about, of course. Keir Starmer, also known as Kid Starver, and Marks Carney, also known as Mark Carney, have come out with their own statements about the state recognition. People calling this a meaningless gesture are wrong. It's actually way more like spitting in everyone's face to do this, while the RAF continues to provide logistical support and targeting data to Israel's racial extermination campaigns. Yep. Kid Starver could, at the very least, like pull back, on offering logistical and surveillance support to the Israeli extermination campaign. But of course, he's not doing that. Who knows? If he does that, then I'll take this a little bit more seriously. Same with Marks Carney as well. Marks Carney obviously not as involved as the UK is in Israel's genocide, but still very much involved as well with weapons transfers and whatnot. And both of these states have offered official recognition, well, conditional rather, recognition of Palestinian statehood. As I was saying, Mark Carney and Keir Starmer gave these like lackluster and totally bare minimum recognitions of Palestinian statehood. It's interesting. On the same time, at the same exact time, Canada banned kneecap from entering the country, while simultaneously doing this like bare minimum recognition. Once again, doing the classic liberal thing of punishing those who were correct but too early, while simultaneously offering the bare minimum recognition. And here we are. But all of that, of course, still caused a tremendous amount of grief and anger in the eyes of some of the most arrogant, entitled, bloodthirsty monsters on the planet, Benjamin Netanyahu. He says a Palestinian state will not be established. The response to the recent attempts to impose a terror state in the heart of our land will be given after my return from the U.S. I have a clear message to those leaders who recognize a Palestinian state after the terrible massacre on October 7th. You are giving a huge reward to terror. And I have another message for you. It will not happen. A Palestinian state will not be established west of the Jordan River. For years, I have prevented the establishment of this terror state despite enormous pressures both from within and from the outside. We did this with determination, and we did it with political wisdom. Moreover, we have double Jewish settlement in Judea and Samaria, and we will continue on this path. The response to the recent attempt to impose a terror state in the heart of our land will be given after my return from the United States. Wait. Now, the reason why this is in Hebrew instead of in English is because he says the quiet part out loud. We have double Jewish settlement. There will be no state for Palestinians. There will be no Palestine. All this shit when he's talking in English, he is facing the Western audiences, at which point he will tone down the language a little bit differently. I mean, he'll speak on this issue a little bit differently. And over the years, as they have become way more aggressive in their approach, let's be real, they've also increased the threats and the intensity of the language itself. And that's where we're at. The ADL is deeply concerned by a decision by a number of countries to prematurely recognize a Palestinian state outside of the framework of direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. This decision fails. Why is an American civil rights organization releasing a statement about other foreign nations recognizing Palestinian statehood? What the does the ADL have to do with this is a question that you would have if you weren't in here already and you were totally aware of what the ADL's sole purpose is. And that, of course, is that it's the Apartheid Defense League. Its primary purpose has always been to defend Israel. It's just they weren't as out and about with it. And they would also, with regular frequency, do other stuff as well to create a sense of legitimacy around what their purpose was. Their goal was to try and obscure the primary purpose by actually tackling other issues, okay? Tackling other civil rights investigations and things of that nature. Yeah, they have in the past defended me and my moderation team for actively going after anti-Semitism. But that is, of course, pre-10/7, post-10/7. And they, for example, they never had JVP as a primary target and a vector of anti-Semitism before 10/7. Post 10/7, they didn't like Students for Justice for Palestine, always. They always said those guys were anti-Semitic. But they never actually went after If Not Now and JVP by name. Only after 10/7 did they actually add anti-Zionism officially as a anti-Semitic designation. They lost all tact. They dropped all notion of civility, and they're very out and about with their primary purpose. Yeah, here, if you want to understand discontent or rather a lack of discontent within the Israeli state, here's the leader of the Israeli opposition vowing to oppose a Palestinian state forever and instead have a military occupation for eternity. Bennett denounces Palestinian state recognition. Palestine today means Paris tomorrow. Here's Hamas's response. In response to the recognition of the state of Palestine by Britain, Canada, and Australia, and the announcement by a number of countries of their intention to recognize the Palestinian state, we in the Islamic resistance movement affirm the following. This recognition is an important step in affirming our Palestinian people's right to defend their land and holy sites and to establish their state with Jerusalem as its capital. It is a deserved outcome of our people's struggle, steadfastness, and sacrifices. This important step must be accompanied by practical measures that lead to an immediate halt to the brutal war of genocide against our Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and a confrontation of the annexation and Judaization projects in the West Bank and Jerusalem. We call on the international community, the United Nations, and its institutions to isolate this rogue entity, stop all forms of cooperation and coordination with it, escalate punitive measures against it, and work to bring its leaders, the war criminals, to international courts. The fascist occupation government continues to insist on challenging international laws and is committing the most heinous violations against our people through policies of genocide and ethnic cleansing. This now requires clear and effective positions to restrain it. The resistance and struggle of our Palestinian people against the most brutal occupation known in modern history is a natural right guaranteed by international law. It is incumbent upon the nations of the world to support our people in confronting this criminal occupation. 100% correct, by the way. The Prime Minister and Dermer said in a recent meeting, the most important thing is to work in full coordination with the Trump administration with respect to the West Bank. There is a drift here, and we can turn it into an opportunity if we work correctly, said Channel 12. Response and measures on the table, applying sovereignty in various configurations and closing consulates. In a statement released by Netanyahu after the announcement, he added, "We will respond to this upon my return from the United States." He's going to come to the United States of America and make Trump gargle his again, make the Secret Service launder his clothes, make the American government launder his reputation, and then Donald Trump is going to come back and, maximize the genocide even further. Good luck to all. All the while this is happening, Israel has obviously shut down the internet in numerous parts of the Gaza Strip, and the occupation continues its heavy bombardment campaigns and are taking out the last remaining standing structures in the heart of Gaza City. So make no mistake, the genocide is still continuing. Israel is still killing by the hundreds every single day, if not by the thousands. We do not know what the total death count is going to look like or have any idea what it looks like right now. We have simple estimates ranging from 300,000 to as high as 680,000. And you still have dumb chirping and being like, oh my God, it's just a loud minority. All of these countries that offer tepid recognitions to the Palestinian statehood that have these insane conditions, by the way, all these countries that do shit like this also simultaneously are suppressing the discontent from within. There are obviously a lot of people in these respective nations in the Western world that are unimaginably frustrated with the involvement of their government's involvement and their own moral culpability with the continuation of this genocide. Israel could not be continuing this genocide without American arms, without British surveillance, without British logistics, without Canadian arms. Israel would not be able to do any of this without the full and unconditional support and loyalty of many Western nations. The populations of these Western nations are aware of this reality. This is precisely the reason why they actively struggle against their own respective nations and their institutions. And yet the response from these Western nations have been to try to create a pressure valve scenario to quiet the discontent while simultaneously suppress any sort of dissenting speech. Obviously, in the United Kingdom, as we've seen over and over again, not only did Palestine Action get prescribed as a terrorist organization, but the British government has actively arrested hundreds of people for the crime of holding up a placard. They're arresting 84-year-old disabled pensioners for the crime of holding up a placard that says, "I stand with Palestine Action." To understand how serious the situation is, or to understand how silly the situation is, look no further than that. But of course, once again, when Ryan Grimm says, when I say this about Netanyahu and his ambitions about what he wants to do to the West Bank, I get a swarm of people trying to complain to Grok or produce a community note. But here's Netanyahu saying it once again in his own words. Netanyahu's own words are very clear. He has all but recognized that he is conducting a genocide. But for some weird reason, Americans refuse to hear those words. I wonder why. Perhaps because they are very aware of said words. They're very aware of the reality and simply seek to shelter themselves and other individuals from said reality. In any case, this is an unavoidable contradiction. And the reality of the matter is, if left unaddressed by Western institutions, by Western governments, it will create unimaginable discontent. So much so that it won't just be discontent directed towards Israel. It will be anger and resentment directed towards the institution of theoretical democracy itself. Because people inevitably will realize that these supposed champions of liberalism, supposed champions of human rights, are actually liars. I already have known that this was the reality, but many others are finally coming to terms with said reality. So good luck to everyone involved. You can't just keep saying people are being anti-Semitic over and over again in defense of the apartheid state doing a genocide. All right, that's all I got for today. I'm tired. Only 6 hours and 50 minutes for you guys. Okay, apologies, but I'm tired, like I said. Love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Monday Newsday, baby. Peace.